Hello everyone and welcome to my channel once again. So I'm finally bringing you the long-awaited PvP guide for my Rend build that you could have seen in my, gameplay videos. And if you haven't, I will make sure that, they are listed in the description down below so that you can check how the build plays out. Now, before we start, I'd like to say that I am no cheater. Okay, so don't expect me to do any snapshotting, with my builds. Like, if someone does, okay, I mean, my idea is, yeah, if you're so bad at the game that you need cheats to win, then maybe go find a different game, or at least, don't run around calling yourself, oh, I'm a good PvPer, I'm such a good player. I'm over exaggerating, but there's actually a lot of people doing that and a lot of people being cheaters. So I will have a separate video exposing all of the cheats that you can use to double or even triple your damage while also increasing your survivability. And hopefully when a lot of people know about this, a lot of people is angry about it, because yeah, even like for PvE, for Gauntlet, unless this is fixed, this will be a huge issue, right? So I want a lot of people to know about it, to scream about it, and force Blizzard to fix this. Now, Blizzard already promised to fix this with the release of Gauntlet, and that's why I think the Gauntlet is delayed, because they don't know how to do it, actually. But hopefully they will figure it out. So that's one thing I wanted to say. The other is, I do not PvP, or like, I didn't PvP much in the previous seasons, if like at all. I'm mainly a PvEer, but PvP is no rocket science. Okay, like once you know how to create builds for PvE, you know how to create builds for PvP. All you need is to check a different kind of spreadsheet to learn the caps for PvP. And I don't mean just like armor cap or resistance cap, etc. That's pretty easy to figure out, but also like ethics caps. Okay, like there are different caps for crit strike damage, overpower, etc. So once you know these, if you do know how to create PvE builds, you will be able to do a PvP one. So yeah, it's in my opinion not a rocket science. Like, yeah, as you could have seen in my gameplay videos, I was playing and testing my build, and like it took me 2 days to make it very competitive without the cheats. Okay, so yeah, this is it for the intro. Let's get right into the build. Now, I have variations as every single one of my builds, okay? So if you're playing even my PvE builds, please make sure to check all of the drop-down menus, because I have drop-down menus for the builds themselves, as well as even for the Paragon boards, okay? And a lot of people, because, well, they, like just start the video and copy-paste the builds and don't actually watch the video, don't know about this. So yeah, if you, got to this point, you're good to go, because you already have an advantage over the people who didn't watch it. So let's start with the build that's like against the Barbarians. We are maxing out, or like, capping the armor cap, etc. We are pretty much against stationary targets, so you can use this against rogues as well and druids, and you just change your gems in the jewelry for like poison resistance. Okay, so this is like against stationary targets, okay, against targets that that are not just like non-stop running away from you, which would be like a ranged rogue or sorcerer. For those, I have the other one that we will go over after. Okay, so the cap in PvP, the armor cap is 9,200, and for every single build, you want to cap your fire resist and lightning resist, okay? The reason is simple. A lot of the people, this build uses it as well, are running Tempest, which is lightning damage on the pet, and Firefly, okay? So, plus obviously we are fighting against sorcerers, which are fire. So yeah, even against the physical damage targets or enemies, you want to always have your fire and lightning resistance maxed out. Especially DS Barbarians, so-called Pokemon Barbarians. They are I mean, it's not their fault, right? But they are already abusing the snapshots just by playing dual swing. Because if you play dual swing, you never drop the buff from Ref of the Berserker, okay? Which gives you tons of character sheet attack power, which is what boosts the pet. That's why they are called Pokemon Barbarians, because, yeah, they are just like a support to the pet. Like, the Barbarians themselves are like, yeah, they're a side character, okay? The pet is the main character, you know, thanks, even if they don't snapshot anything else, just by snapshotting Ref of the Berserker, that's already insane, okay? There's like 50%, you know, more damage than you will do. But even those can be beaten, as you could have seen in the gameplays, because not many people actually play Rend. Most of the people are abusing the pet right now. So yeah, like those are the caps. We are not playing crit strike damage here. We are not playing overpower, so we don't care about those. So let's get right into it. So for the equipment, obviously you are going with Shaco, right? Then for the chest, here we are going for triple DRs and armor to reach the armor cap using the Iron Warrior aspect, because then the Iron Skin grants us unstoppable. You don't want to just sit in CC in PvP. So this is extremely valuable. It also gives us damage reduction, and we are using, of course, rubies here. Now in free-for-all PvP, you can even mix it a little bit, you know, just in case you meet like Rend Barbarian, you can go like 2 rubies and 3 amethysts, because amethysts, as you can see, give you damage over time reduction, so you can like mix these up. But you know, generally we play rubies in our armor. Then for our gloves, we go with attack speed, ranks of Rend, strength, and all stats. We are using Edgemaster's aspect here to increase our damage based on, well, you probably know how it works, on our primary resource. And we are almost always at full fury. It's very easy, even without the base skill, to sustain fury in PvP. For pants, we are using Thibault's Will. You know, insane amounts of damage increase that we gain from these pants, max resource, DR close, you know, very, very good pants. Then for the boots, we are going for lightning resist, dodge chance, movement speed, and DR injured. Especially the DR injured is very helpful here. Some movement speed we need as well, or we will just be snails, right? Like, we don't actually need much of a movement speed if it's just against barbarians who like stand in front of you. You can, you know, go for strength, etc. But my aim was to have a PvP build that requires as little changes as humanly possible when changing between builds, as in whether you are, let's say, dueling against sorcerers and range strokes and against, you know, people that or like characters that need to stand in front of you to actually do damage. You know, I want to do as little changes as possible. The gear is expensive. A lot of people don't have time to form like, you know, 3 sets of every single piece of gear. So just so you understand my choices on some of the gear. Here we are using Exploiter. We have increased crowd control duration. That's great. That, you know, prolongs the window where we can kill someone. And if they become unstoppable, or like, you know, when they are unstoppable, we deal increased damage to them, which is also awesome. For the two-handed mace, we are using, you know, the evergreen for Rend builds, all stats, strength, vulnerable damage, and damage while berserking, and accelerating here. If you didn't watch my previous videos on like PvE Rend build, you know, and simply PvE Rend guides, then let me explain why accelerating. All of the damage over time effects within the game happen in half a second server cycle. So the more attack speed you have, the more damage you do. So accelerating definitely on the two-hander. Then we are using Ramaladni's Magnum Opus. You know, that's the best weapon you can get unless you're playing Hora, which you likely are not in PvP. So yeah, and if you already played Rend in PvE, you should probably have this weapon. Doomringer, you know, we need to get a lot of HP. Okay, we need to get a lot of HP. My build is around 45,000 HP, and that's when I'm actually using 3 amethysts and 2 rubies. Okay, so like I go over 50,000 HP. I think that's like a good amount. You want to be around 50,000 HP in PvP. So Doomringer is great because we also attack with our dual wields like all the time. We are also proccing the DR from Doomringer. So yeah, it can heal us, etc. It's simply mandatory for PvP. Then our other two-hander is the Grandfather. Again, a great weapon. In combination with all of the extra, you know, max life that we have, the Grandfather in my build is 17,000 HP. 17,000 HP, okay? So this is like the best weapon you can play for PvP, and it doesn't matter that the unique effect doesn't do anything for our Rend, because the other stats are so powerful that, yeah, it makes it worth. For our ring, we are using resource gen, damage while berserking, vulnerable damage, and max life. As I said, you want to get, you know, to at around 50,000 HP. I personally don't actually have max life in my build, so yeah, you can go higher than what I have at the moment. And the aspect here is slaking, okay? Because we have a chance to gain fury when our Rend deals direct damage, basically when we hit someone with Rend, okay? So yeah, this is extremely powerful. That's what makes us pretty much non-stop at 100 fury. The inherent resistance we are using here is fire resistance. As I already explained before, we want to keep fire resistance and lightning resistance at all times. I forgot to mention, but you can obviously see the gems in the weaponry are amethyst for increased damage over time. Then we are using Ring of Starless Skies because yeah, we are spending fury non-stop. We just smack our Rend, so this is a non-stop 40% multiplicative damage increase, which is awesome. Then for our amulet against close targets, stationary targets, we want to have 3 ranks of cut to the bone, cooldown reduction, damage reduction from bleeding, damage reduction from close. We don't actually need to play movement speed on our amulet because, yeah, we are not chasing those guys. We are not going to be chasing druids that will be in our face. We are not going to be chasing barbarians, right? So we do not need movement speed here. And the aspect that I'm using here is Limitless Rage. Thanks to our whole kit, we are always capping fury, so this is like non-stop up. Now, cooldown reduction is extremely important here. I already showed why in one of my gameplay videos, and that's because, yeah, the lower the cooldown on our shouts, the lower the cooldown on our Iron Skin and Wrath of the Berserker, thanks to the martial glyph as well. Plus, obviously, we get the cooldown reduction for these spells like as well, just for them, without the martial and shouts being taken into consideration. So cooldown reduction extremely important because Iron Skin always heals us to full. Okay, this is always from 1% to 100%. This is 50,000 heal, always. Or if you have more HP, then it's more HP. It's simply 100% life healed with Iron Skin. So we want this up as much as possible. Plus, yeah, the Iron Warrior aspect gives us unstoppable and damage reduction as well. Now, the gems in the jewelry are skulls to let us reach the armor cap of 9.2 thousand. Now, when we look at the skill tree, let's go up. We are taking 2 points here just to get the Rend, taking everything, dumping everything into the Rend, Enhanced Rend, and Violent Rend to deal more damage. 3 points into Imposing Presence for more life. Then we go for Rallying Cry, Enhanced Rallying Cry, and Tactical Rallying Cry. We, want to be, non-stop overcapping on Fury to increase our damage. And we definitely need the Unstoppable. You know, we need as many sources of unstoppable as possible so we don't die in some CC chain. Okay, then I already explained we are taking Iron Skin, Enhanced Iron Skin, and Tactical Iron Skin. So this is healing us to full and giving us barrier. 1 point into Outburst and 1 point into Tough as Nails. The reason for that is that in the Paragon board, I am playing Revenge, so that's like non-stop multiplicative damage increase, you know, 8% non-stop damage increase, which is great. And even if like the rogue, even if they're like ranged, you know, and they hit you with a physical, they immediately start bleeding, which will put the damage reduction from bleeding on them. It will, you know, proc the slow on them from harmstring. It's a great pick, at least in my opinion, okay? And from my testing, an awesome ability to have. Then, of course, Challenging Shout, Enhanced Challenging Shout, and Tactical Challenging Shout. Once again, so that we never run out of fury. Then 2 points into Booming Voice to increase the duration of our shouts, and Raid Leader so that our shouts heal us. Then we are putting 3 points into Aggressive Resistance so that when we are berserking, we have increased damage reduction, and only 1 point in Prolific Fury because we are actually not zerking as much as, for example, Dual Swing Barbarian. You know, this is no longer PvE. We are not just meshing our charge with Battle Fervor to have non-stop zerking. So yeah, 1 point here is more than enough. Then I am playing 1 point in Pit Fighter because yeah, it increases my damage, sure. Which is great, but the DR distance I don't need as much. Okay, like this is against stationary targets, as I explained. So I only put 1 point here and then 3 points into Slaying Strikes for the, you know, for the one shot when the enemy is low. We do our rotation, use Rupture, which is the other skill that we are taking to like what is it? Oh my god, I lost the word in English. Consume. I'm sorry. To consume all the bleeding to do insane amounts of damage. Then, of course, Enhanced Rupture and Warrior's Rupture to get the attack speed, as I explained. All of the damage over time effects, you know, half a second cycle, half a second server cycle, yada, yada, yada. So attack speed is absolutely bonkers and a must-have in Rend or any damage over time build. Hamstring for the slow, and mostly to get to the cut to the bone to get increased damage, bleeding, you know, damage against vulnerable enemies. 1 point in Thick Skin to get to counter offensive. It's pretty easy with this build to, you know, have 45, at least 45 above 50% of our life. So that's what makes us deal 12% more damage. 3 ranks into Duelist. Again, attack speed means damage. 1 point in Tempered Fury and 3 points in Invigorating Fury for healing for every 100 Fury that we spend. Of course, Breath of the Berserker. And here we are playing Unbridled Rage, because yeah, the more Fury we spend, the more we heal. We, as I explained, are not berserking non-stop. This is also not Dual Swing Barbarian, which can snapshot the Breath of the Berserking, you know, which then makes Unconstrained do more damage. Okay, it does more damage if you never drop the Breath of the Berserker buff if you pick Unconstrained, but you lose the extra effects from Unbridled Rage. Okay, like the healing, for example, or in the Paragon board that we're gonna have a look at. And now we would lose the Warbringer that gives us 45. Now, I have 2 sets of boards. One is called No Exploit, which I guess you know what that means, and one is called Exploit. Okay, the reason I have 2 is because the Exploit one is more damage, a little bit more damage, but you lose the damage reduction from damage over time effects. So if you are playing against someone who has damage over time effects, you will simply take more damage. Also, this would require you to completely change the board when you are playing against distant targets and sorcerers mostly, because there we want to have the damage reduction from damage over time effects, right? So I prefer to play the no exploit. The damage loss is simply not so big to be worth it to keep changing the Paragon board. Okay, so as I said, I want to make as little changes as humanly possible, no matter who I'm playing against. Okay, so this is like my evergreen board that works against everything. So in the first board, it's a great board for dexterity glyphs, actually pretty easy to get here. We are taking all of the max life, you know, putting territorial for a DR close. Then we are going to hemorrhage, one of the best boards in the game for Ire. Super easy to get 70 strength for Ire to max out on damage while berserking. You know, while berserking we also take reduced damage from elites, and players when blood marked are considered elites, so that's great as well. Taking all of the DR from bleeding that we can, getting some extra damage with physical, you know, pathing towards the legendary node, which turns all of our vulnerable damage into multiplicative damage, you know, and taking the aforementioned damage taken over time reduction, plus some control impaired duration reduction, which is also great. Just in case we don't have our CDs up for unstoppable to lower the CC chain and not die in it. Then we go to the right where we are playing Decimator, playing Marshal there to boost all of the nodes around to get as much vulnerable damage as well as damage reduction against vulnerable. We want to have so much damage reduction stacked, the period. We want as much damage reduction, you know, stacked as possible. So yeah, boosting these nodes also great. We are pathing from this side to again gain some extra max life with also physical damage, which is a great additive because it's unconditional, it's up at all times. Then we go up, taking Blood Rage. I already kind of showed you there's a Revenge Glyph here. I also have this here against like sorcerers, even though they don't actually do direct damage to you, to proc the bleeding from tough as nails. The increase to the damage reduction from bleeding enemies from Revenge, you know, is extremely powerful. So that's what I went with. And of course, taking the legendary node to again turn our additive damage while berserking stat into multiplicative, and we don't need to be zerking for this to be up. This is up at all times, and of course taking all of the damage while berserking nodes around here as well. Then we go to the left from hemorrhage where we are taking Carnage, again taking all of the zerking damage, taking all of the DRs that we can, and playing ambidextrous here. You know, all of the damage that we do is with dual wields, so this is again a multiplicative damage increase while dual wielding one-handed weapons, as well as, you know, we are boosting all of the nodes around, which is extremely valuable for us. And the last board is Warbringer. Also already kind of showed you to get 45 for the extra damage from counter-offensive, but obviously for the extra DR when we are fortified as well. So this is very good. This is also where we get another chunk of HP. You know, every single node with max HP keeps on multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. They also changed it for season 3 that max life affixes get multiplied by this. That's why we have so much HP. So this is absolutely awesome because this is what lets us have the two most important resistances maxed out, gives us extra life, which is awesome, and lets us play triple skull for the armor cap. Okay, so this is, in my opinion, like the best thing you can do. And here we are taking some extra max life as well as max fury with the Ramolabni, because yeah, every fury that we have increases our damage multiplicatively by 0.4%. So this is it for the Paragon board, at least the no exploit one. If we look at the exploit one, basically I already told you, we exchanged these nodes with DR damage over time effects for pathing towards the right here, taking more physical damage additive, you know, slotting in exploit, which turns into more multiplicative, and then the rest is pretty much the same as you can see. Some people, yeah, like the snapshots they will do, but we don't want to do that. Is, you know, path here, just a snapshot, then they take it away. So like, yeah, that's the disgusting thing you can do with this board as well. Plus, but please don't use cheats. So now let's have a look at the Schnitzel. This is pretty much the standard, you know, playing Tempest, playing Firefly. Even though we are not full Pokemon build, like the Firefly is still extremely strong. If you want, sure, you can play the classic Flash of Adrenaline with duration, you know, etc, etc. But the way I play it, okay, is Tempest Evernight, because I want to pump my skills by 4 ranks, secondary Shaco, right? With Frigid support, it's so powerful. It's so powerful. It procs like non-stop, you know, and you just freeze the enemies. It gives you a huge duration, of CC that you can abuse towards your advantage. You can also use, I think it's electrocution. Yeah, you can also use electrocution here to actually stun them. Okay, instead of freezing them. But because we are not using bludgeoning weapons, you know, one of our one-hander is not bludgeoning, to be like using Valve to increase the damage. Frigid support, in my opinion, is better than a breaking support, so that when anyone uses a barrier, we instantly, when the Tempest hits, we destroy the barrier and we apply vulnerable. This way, we can make sure that the enemy is non-stop vulnerable, because if the enemy is like running a lot, you know, and we are not playing exploit, we can't really proc vulnerable, right? Like we could, for example, play, how is it called? Pressure point, but it just doesn't proc enough. And then like, if you proc it with pressure point, thanks to enhanced Rend, if you never stop attacking the target, you know, you will keep the vulnerable up. But you get CC, this is like immediately gone. It's very hard to keep vulnerable without playing breaking. So breaking is what I went for. Plus, of course, it destroys the barriers, which is awesome. So that's what I play. For the Firefly, I play Seeking support, multi-shot support, and piercing support. That's like to, you know, max out on the Firefly damage. But yeah, if I do Flash of Adrenaline, then I would play the same as I play in PvE Genesis, duration support, and tactical support, okay, which will give you a non-stop 50% multiplicative damage increase to your Rend. But yeah, I did a lot of testing. I also talked to some other people playing Rend, and yeah, even if you're not going like full Pokemon, the Fireflies are performing better than Flash of Adrenaline. So now let's have a look at the, you know, distant, like I call it versus sorcerers, but basically versus distant targets build. Now, the equipment is like kind of the same, but at the same time, it's not. Like the Ubers are the same, obviously, okay? So there are no changes there to the weapons, you know? And we are here using amethysts in the armor, so that we get increased damage taken over time reduction, you know? Our chest, triple DR, but this time not using DR close, but you using DR distant. For obvious reasons, sorcerers just, you know, keep on teleporting away. So DR distant is extremely valuable here. The aspect is the same. Iron Warrior. For our gloves, here is the change. We are using crit strike chance, okay? Everything else is the same. And the aspect here is anemia. The reason for that is because here we are using the lunging strike, and when we crit with lunging strike, we gain berserking, and because we don't have Breath of the Berserker in this build, that's how we proc our berserking. So we want to max out on those windows to do our burst. Now, like thankfully, sorcerers are quite squishy compared to other classes, you know. So we don't really need all the extra damage from Wrath of the Berserker to kill them. What we need is to catch them with our damage window with the Zerking, and their window where they don't have the teleport up and like their, you know, frost barrier, etc. So yeah, we don't need as much damage. We just need to catch them at the right moment to kill them. So yeah, the crit strike chance will increase the duration, increase the procs of our berserking from lunging strike, and because lunging strikes has insane lucky hit chance, 50%, plus we still use starless skies, we are proccing anemia a lot, like a lot. We can super CC chain them as long as we can keep on jumping on them with lunging strikes, which again gives us the opportunity to kill them if they, you know, if we catch them without cooldowns to actually survive the CC chain. And then for pants, here we are going for damage reduction distant, close, bleeding, and damage reduction flat. Damage reduction close can also be live. That's also good. I went for close because, like, if you are playing it well, or if the sorcerer is playing it wrong, then you are actually in close also like quite a lot, thanks to following them with lunging. So having a good mix of both distant and close is very, very strong. We are using Aspect of Might because, yeah, we are spamming lunging. So we have like non-stop another 20% damage reduction. Then on our shoes is the same thing. As I said, I tried to make it so that you have to swap as little items around as humanly possible. So again, resistance, dodge chance, movement speed, damage reduction while injured. Movement speed is actually great, of course, against sorcerers, so that you can, you know, catch up to them when they are running. The aspect still exploiters. The weapon is the same, you know, all of the weapons are the same, so no changes there. The ring is the same, no changes there. Starless skies, again, no changes there. And then the amulet is, you know, 3 ranks to cut to the bone, and then again, cooldown reduction, damage reduction from bleeding, damage reduction from distant. Basically, we exchanged the DR close for DR distant, and the aspect here is Ghost of Walker, because we are proccing Unstoppable a lot. This gives us, you know, non-stop 38% increased movement speed, you know, combine it with all the other skills that we have, and the movement speed from our shoes. We are extremely fast, fast as lightning, baby. And it allows us to play, again, the cooldown reduction, which is extremely powerful for the uptime of our shouts, and most of all, Iron Skin for healing, and the Unstoppable, and double DRs, okay? You could also play movement speed, you know, change the things around a little bit and not play like 3 ranks to cut to the bone, but I don't want to lose too much damage, right? So this is like I think the best from both worlds. Now the jewelry that we use here kind of is based on what your resistance is on the shoes. You either want it to be lightning or fire, okay? And then these change, okay? Either you will use, like, if you have fire on your boots, then you will use lightning resistance ring and lightning resistance gem, and, you know, vice versa. So what I do here, because again, sorcerers, I don't need any armor, like there's no need for any armor. I max out on fire resistance, you know, through these two, and I max out on lightning resistance through boots, and then I also play cold resistance gem, because they do a little bit of cold, you know, as well. So we are like maxed out on the 2 most important resistances, and then almost maxed out on cold, giving us the most amount of DR of survivability against sorcerers, mixed with mobility to not let them just jump around, you know. For the skill tree, yeah, not much has changed here. This is the same, you know, apart from playing the combat lunging strike, because we actually do play lunging strike, as I told you. That's what procs our berserking. This is the same here. we are actually playing 3 points in martial vigor to have more DR against elites. As I explained, blood marked players are considered elites. Then again, this is the same, you know, all of this is the same. Here, 2 points into blooming, you know, 3 for healing, again, the same. Here, Pit Fighter, 3 points in it, okay? 3 points into Pit Fighter because, again, it increases our distant damage reduction, which is super important against sorcerers. So now we really want it. Yeah, 3 points Slaying Strike, again, the same thing, you know, everything pretty much here is the same. We do not have Duelist here. Because yeah, we wanted to max out on the DR, so they don't just kill us with like one firewall damage over time effect. Here again the same for healing, and again Unbridled Rage. For the Paragon board, this is the no exploit board with a slight change. Like if you have a look here, we connect the Warbringer from this side, but here we connect it from the other side because, as I said, we don't need resistances. I mean, we don't need armor, and so we can cap resistances through our gems. So we don't need this resistance here. So we just go from this side to gain extra HP, you know, with some extra max Fury and the Warbringer, and the points that we saved here we just put into more, you know, potion healing and max life. Like this is the same amount of max life as when we, you know, use it here. So the max life is the same, you know, as the no exploit close version, but yeah, we gained some. We gain some, you know, more value against sorcerers by saving these points, because potion healing, obviously, against sorcerers, they are running a lot. We are not just standing in front of them, spending like non-stop fury with our Rend to heal ourselves. So potion healing definitely helps. Now for the pet, there is a change here. Firefly still the same. But here we are playing bleeding support because, you know, the way we CC now is having aspect of anemia on our gloves. We no longer need frigid support here to CC them, but bleeding support is extremely powerful because it increases the damage of our bleeds when the enemy is moving, which sorcerers will be moving, so they, you know, take increased damage. That's somehow how we, you know, close the gap between not playing Thibault's Will, you know, and playing more DRs over damage. And, you know, because they don't proc bleeding through Tough as Nails, you know, they don't proc bleeding through Tough as Nails because they don't do direct damage to you. That's how we make sure, because Tempest always hits, okay? Tempest always hits. So that's how we make sure that they are always bleeding, and we have insane amounts of damage reduction from bleeding enemies. 60%. 60%. Okay, if we didn't play bleeding support here, we might lose the bleeding on the target, which would make us take make us take more damage, which we definitely don't want to, right? If we survive, we can kill them. So that's the change I made with the Schnitzel. Now, this was a long video. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if sometimes maybe you know, I talk like you know, left and right. It's pretty hard to, if it's not your, you know, native language, to speak for such a long time. But I really do hope that you now understand my build, understand the choices that I made for PvP, and that it will help you enjoy the PvP more, enjoy it as much as I do, unless obviously the person against me is just, you know, abusing all of the snapshots, which kind of diminishes the fun. But yeah, that should hopefully be fixed very soon. So thanks for watching. See ya in the next one.